So after looking at the HTML layout and realizing that within HTML you only really have up or down to position your elements, you may be thinking that how can I get a greater deal of positioning with my elements but not have to rely upon the floats of CSS? And one way you can get around this is using the CSS box method. Now, the box method of CSS is one of the core components, and it's very important. It affects pretty much everything the way the page renders. So if we go back to our test page from earlier, you can see that we have this as a title. This is a title as a h1 tag, as you can see, and the p tag, this is a paragraph, is a simple p tag. You can see that this is a title has a greater margin around it than this is a paragraph. If we were to create another paragraph tag as such, so we can go boop, this is another paragraph, close that, open it up, wait for it to load, and there we go. You can see that the h1 has a larger margin around it than paragraph, and this is completely down to the CSS box method. Now, browsers enforce their own rules about how big a border is. Like a few years ago, the difference between Internet Explorer and Firefox would often cause many bugs between different browsers just because of these different size gaps that are created. So one interesting thing to note is that every browser enforces its own differences, like the tiny bit of space between here and the border. So the best way to teach the box method is just to open up the Chrome Developer Console, which you can gain by having the browser Google Chrome and pressing the F12 key as such. And now this is the perfect demonstration of the box method. So the box method itself is all about these various boxes which are piled upon your content. So we start off with the content in the center, which is the header, the paragraph. This is title, this is your content, and as you can see by this blue inner box here, that is the content itself. If we specifically select this content here, you can see the blue box represents the width of the content. So the blue box itself is the content, and then the orange box is the margin around the content. And we can see the effects of actually changing the margin. So if we simply add a new style going margin and then give it 50 pixels worth of margin, you can now see that 50 pixels have been applied in every single direction, and this orange box has gotten greater in size. And that's essentially how the box model works. It's rather simple, and it makes a fair bit of sense. So the various aspects you've got, you have the width of you have the content, which is the most center box, which you can see by that blue bar. You have the padding, which is a green box, and if we create some padding now, another 50 pixels of padding, you can see that this padding is the green box there. We then have a border, so if we create a border using CSS, the border is another aspect, and that encompasses the content and the padding. And finally we have the margin, which is this orange box on the outside. And when we hover over it using the Google Chrome Developer Toolkit, we can see all of these aspects of the box. The blue box is the content itself, the green box is the padding, this browny orangey box is the border, and the orange box on the outside is the margin. And it's overly very simple, and you can exploit this to get some primitive movement of your content, to move it around and get various different things. One question that many people ask is, what's the difference between margin and padding? Like, why is it advantageous to adjust the padding, and why is it advantageous to move the margin? Well, to put it simply, this comes down to block level and inline elements. If you imagine as adjusting the margin as pushing objects away from your object, if I were to increase the margin of this header tag, you'll notice that the text, everything gets pushed away very quickly, while the content relatively stays the same size, while the padding you can imagine as pushing the content further in on itself. So as you can see, like, the box gets larger, the border itself gets bigger, while if I adjust the margin, the box itself stays a relatively similar position. And that's the main difference. If you want to move text around within its border, you use padding, while if you want to move objects away from, like say, the edge of the page or another object on your page, you use margin. The border is just a simply line which goes around the padding, and the content itself is in the middle. So you can adjust the content size by using width and other similar tools. But as I said previously, if you open up Developer Console in Google, you can simply just hover over and see what the box model looks like for yourself. Every element gets its own box model. As you can see, these ones don't have a padding and they don't have a border, so they simply have the blue and the orange box of a margin and a content. But with the H tag, where we've added additional style rules, you have the content, padding, border and margin. So it's overly very simple. You can apply different rules to different aspects, but at the end of the day it's simple enough, and it's a good way of positioning your content and moving things around. So in summary, the box model is simply just a series of boxes which encompass your content and help you get a better sense of positioning on it.